There's a bunch of door assembly to do, and it's gonna take a while. West Coast holiday is coming up in about a month, so windows are a must. As usual, I have not pre-rehearsed the assembly of this door system. There are some manuals. Jim Kellogg has a good tutorial on putting the doors together. I think I have all the parts. It's gonna require a lot of fiddling. I wasn't kidding when I said complete assembly because this is stripped down to the bare parts. All the wind wing assembly, everything has been taken apart for rechroming. Prior to rechroming, I made sure all the threads were in good condition, and hopefully that's still the case. Hopefully I still have the screws. Might need to replace some of them, but at least I should have placeholders to get this assembled. So there are some extra parts. We might need to use some of those as well, but like I said, this is a big project. I've also been inspecting the condition of the door on the inside. So these were heavily metalwork doors, and there's been some, overspray on the inside, but I don't think it's been seam sealed, and I don't think it's been properly cared for on the internals. So I'm using this endoscope camera. This one is new to me. I've had one before, but this one has an articulating end on it. See how the camera there can wiggle around? That allows me to get even better sight into all these hidden crooks and crannies. So let me show you what I found. The little knob here on the side is what you use to articulate it. It works really well, and then you just can snap pictures here. I'm not sure if this one does video. I think it does, but right now it's just taking pictures. Also, it's important to look up underneath this seal, because that's another place that's really difficult to paint. Obviously, these cars are going to get babied from now on, but you still don't want to be caught in the rain and be stressed out about water collecting in here. There are drain holes, but that sort of moisture can cause havoc if it's not properly coated. So I'm going to get some epoxy primer on a brush and lightly sand the inside of the door and paint it like it should have been painted. All right, you guys, I've spent a crazy amount of time cleaning the inside of the door so I can very carefully paint it to really protect it from rust. This really should have been done before paint, but what can I say? I mean, we're here now. I was not the one that painted this, but I'm using wax and grease remover, and I've got all the surface rust off. I basically just wire brushed it to death. But now, when I have a wet cloth with wax and grease remover, and I go over all the surfaces, just prior to painting it, every little nook and cranny, the cloth, comes out clean. So that's been a ton of work. I did use a very small wire wheel on the end of a very low power Dremel. The danger is you don't want to upset the paint on the other side, but I've got it perfectly clean now. I've got all the seams blown out. I'll do one more vacuum, and I'm going to very carefully paint most importantly, the inside, the outer skin. And then I'm just going to paint the door bottoms, everything I can with the paintbrush. And I'll use my camera to sort of make sure I get everything. I think you don't want to skip this step. I probably could have been done by assembling the door by now, but because this is my car and I want it to last a long time, I think it's very important to look at all these internal cavities and make sure they are properly rust proofed. This doesn't even have any seam sealer in it. There are some drain holes in the bottom that are well placed. So now begins the process, very slow. I have a very tiny brush and I'm basically gonna coat all the critical surfaces, if not the entire door. Some of it's already been primered, but I really want to get the low surfaces and all the crevices with this epoxy primer. Now this is gray. Originally I thought I should use black because it would probably look better. But on second thought, I think the lighter color might actually be easier to inspect down the road. So I think I'm good with the gray. I'll leave the low-lying areas gray. And then if there's any areas you can visibly see, I don't think there are, but there's one mirror hole inspection cover thing here. I can maybe top coat that with black. The nice thing about this little paintbrush is it can get so many places that a spray gun can't. So in a lot of ways, this is the best way to go. And then anytime there's an exterior hole, I'm being very careful not to run my brush across that, because that'll put paint on the outside in a hurry. So I'm basically just doing like some detail painting right up to the hole. I'm gonna put this in my ultrasonic cleaner, and this is completely dry, so I'm gonna make sure this gets cleaned up. This has a date code of 963, which is appropriate for my car. Okay, so the results are in. I did like 3, sometimes 4 coats. Like on the weld seam, I did like 4 coats. On some of the other seams, I just kind of loaded it up as much as I could. It's already tacky and there is no damage to the door jamb or the door bottom or the outside of the door. So everything is just fine. Let me show you around. I'll try to take some video inside. I think this is gonna work out. It absolutely needs a seam sealer. There's so many overlapping seams in there. I mean, like behind the door handle, behind the door latch, all the places in the corner where the hinges are, there's just tons of seams. And so I'm going to let this cure a little bit because I put it on pretty heavy. I'm gonna let it cure for a day or 2. I have 7 days to coat it with seam sealer before it dries. And I think I'm gonna go for a 2-part epoxy seam sealer, because what I don't want to happen is I don't want it to take the door skin and pull it in. That'll be visible from the outside. So if you use a 2-part seam sealer, I don't think it's gonna shrink as much. Plus it's in epoxy, so it'll bind well with the epoxy I just put down. Something I didn't expect to do, but I mean, it had to be done. This is the numbers matching door to this car too, by the way. There's a little stamp right about there, a little hard to see. I'll take a picture of it. And then someone cut a giant hole in the speaker area. That's not supposed to be there, but I just left it because it gets covered up and it's part of the car. So where was I again? Now it's actually time to put some chrome on. And according to the sequence, I think these have to go on the door before the frames go in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws that hold this up against the paint. And then I have new seals. This is used many times in the car, I think, but it's got basically a figure-8 profile with a thinner side, I think goes towards the outside paint. I need to double check that. The holes do seem to line up, but the rubber's not in yet. So Jim says in the book here that the small part of the figure-8 of the profile goes under the chrome, which that's different than what I thought it would be. So that might make it easier though, because the thick part is out here. And he says to, tape all this down and then slide the rubber in. All right, these screws are the incorrect head, but I'm just gonna make sure that the holes in the door are okay for these size screws. So that fits perfectly. Also good. Perfect. All right, 4 out of 5, not bad. Okay, cool. So these are the right screws. They just need to, look for the right screw heads. These are actually stainless steel, which is probably a good call, given that, it's gonna probably get some weather on there. The thing that I don't have is the new fuzzy strip. I don't think I have that, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this mounted, and then I can put the fuzzy strip in once it arrives. I need to order that. Probably not gonna get the windows in today either, so we'll be okay. So Jim says to tape this onto the door. And I need to be careful I don't wrap the tape into the new paint because it's still drying. Okay, I did just find the screw, which is I think the correct screw. Now these are black, but it's countersunk and it's the same diameter, actually a little bit pointy too, which is even a little bit better. So if I have enough of these, I'll just go ahead and use these, but if not, I'll go to the store and get some stainless ones. Okay, all the screws are started. And then Jim says just slide this under. I'm gonna put just a little bit of silicone on this, just 1 to make sure it's clean and 2 to make it slide just a little bit. Yeah, that's tough. We're gonna have to remove at least a couple screws to get that rubber in there. Okay, the rubber is in. I might have gone a little too far. Let's pull that back. There we go. Now this is where those pointy screws come in handy, so I'm going to go ahead and use the pointy one. I mean, it looks pretty good. There's the tight spot right there. I mean, it does pass the paper test, but I'm afraid if you slam the door or if you vibrate going down the road, I have a feeling it's going to make contact there. So if we do need to make a change, it would just be real slight. I don't think it would mess the chrome up too bad if we had to do that there. But back here, the actual chrome is fitting. I mean, this rubber is sticking out. I can kind of push that in temporarily. The rubber we can trim, of course, but this is fitting perfectly to the body line. So I'm also a little reluctant to pushing it backwards. So it's just a little bit of tweaking, but the rubber actually looks pretty good. So it fits a little bit loose right there. So here is the rubber pieces for the vent windows. So let's see if we can get these put together. So I would expect there to be a left and a right, because this is the inside part. We're looking at the outside, so we put it in like so. So I'm pretty sure we need to do that. It's kind of hard to find these just slotted screws, but these threads are in good condition. I remember when I disassembled this, things were not in good condition. So some of this stuff I had to re-tap and extract broken screws. It was not easy. Those screws are in, but there's no point in torquing them down right now. We just leave everything loose. They're about 2 turns out from tight. And, but good news is this fit well inside the channel. The thing is there's 4 holes here, and I think we want to use these lower ones. So let's make sure before we go too far, these lower ones are functioning. Okay, it's good just to do a trial fit with the hardware. I'm not sure, I can't remember what the sequence is to get the wind wing in there. We might have to take that apart again. But there's also a screw that goes right there. We can go ahead and put that in. But this does fit over that channel. And there is, you know, some gap there on the bottom. I think that gets covered with the weather strip, but it doesn't look too bad. So that tab should be on, I think, the bottom. So the screw will go in from this direction. Now the hole essentially lines up. You ever seen one of these that basically hold Phillips screws? Basically keeps it from falling out. This is a deep hole, so it's hard to line it up. Okay, so we'll leave that kind of loose too. And let's look at the book and see what we need to do to get the window in here. Here's my window. One of them, I got a couple. I think these are the ones that came out of the car. Oh, this one's labeled something different. This one says Duravit. So one of these has been replaced at some point. So this is the one that goes here. This one is a Securite. So it might be smart to clean this one up and use this glass and then just keep this one as a spare. The glass really needs to be polished with like zirconium powder or whatever, but I'm gonna reserve that for a little bit. I just want to make sure we can we have all the right parts. So these just get a nut on the inside. Here's the baggie of parts that go into this assembly. So there's quite a bit to it. I did take some pictures during disassembly, so hopefully we can get this back together. This button thing is visible from the outside. So I think this section is the exterior section. And then this would be the upper pivot, like so. This needs to pivot. So this is not working. This needs to fit inside itself. Here's an unplated one just for reference, and it doesn't fit in this part either. 3.9 millimeters, or basically 4 millimeters on the unplated one. It's a little bit dirty, but this hole here needs to be drilled with like a 4 millimeter drill bit. I can see some junk down inside of it. Yep, and now it fits. That's the original, and then this is the re-chromed. Fits fine. So the book says to, glue everything together. I'm gonna do it without the glue, just as a trial, just to get an idea if there's any gotchas. Discovered that there is a little washer that goes between these two pieces. It's this guy right here. It's a little like fiber washer that I think is going to keep that from wearing metal to metal. And then there's these little brass washers can be used. One side had more than the other, but they can go underneath this spindle to kind of adjust the window up or down. And then basically there's a wavy washer, and then this guy, and then this guy. I'll show you the picture, but that's it. These are the parts. So these shims can be used to adjust the height of the window up or down. This rubber is directional, so when this goes through, it only pivots this way. So that's the way the rubber is designed. It's got a stop on that side and a stop on that side. So that should be the correct piece. And that should go over. It looks like this needs to get trimmed. It's extra long, which is fine. That's why we're kind of doing a trial fit right now. Okay, this rubber seal, it looks like it will go in. I'm not overly upset about how the seal is fitting. It looks like it is important that this piece slides on the glass, so that if this pivot is anchored, which it needs to be, otherwise you'll have no way to tighten that nut. This needs to be anchored, and then this piece will slide in and kind of glue at the same time. So that's why I'm kind of doing a trial fit. The rubber here is extra long, so it's all bunched up. I just jammed it inside the frame there. It's too long, that's why it's all wavy. So I'm just gonna let it sit and hopefully compress itself, and then I'll just do a small trim, basically material safe as much as possible. And then same on this side, it's extra long. It's like kind of sticking out the bottom there. So once that's trimmed, this will tuck inside here, and then we can sort of draw it down and just massage it into place. I mean, it's gonna take hours of work. I know it's gonna take hours of work, but this looks like it's the vertical piece, and it has a similar feature where it only goes one way. And then of course the latch will bring it all down tight. So I need to stop here because I'm basically just out of time. Spent a lot of time on doing rust proofing I didn't expect. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next week.